Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Talking about the Winter Blues on the pre-show. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Southbound Sports. You can check that out. We do the live streams on there. And then the regular audio automatically uploads whenever we get it up on Spotify. Make sure you like us there and tell your friends. The winter, we'll see how we kind of do shorter shows or something, but we got the first college football playoff. But before we get into college stuff, the Steelers were beaten pretty good by the Eagles. And I thought that's kind of my fear for the Steelers team, kind of like a paper tiger, where they go through the regular season, get 10 wins or whatever, and then run into another solid team, and they just don't have enough. But on the other hand, the Eagles are now in a position where they could be the leading team in the NFC. The Lions had another gruesome injury. Hutchinson went down early in the year. He said that he would be on track for a playoff Super Bowl maybe return. I don't know how you can have a dead leg and then magically be in shape for the Super Bowl. Right? We're talking in the pre-show about just staying in shape year round, let alone if your leg's completely broken. It has to heal up. Like, you're not running cardio. And in fact, I mean, actually, depending on how it heals, if they make him do like water aerobics, that is pretty hard work. But I feel like, what has it been? 3-4 months? Like, you're going to have some muscle loss where you're not going to be effective.
But this is the big argument with that kind of thing, though, is like, for us, we have jobs, we have other stuff going on. If my only job is to be a professional athlete, I'm going to live at the training facility. I'll have a cot. I'll be like, I'll see you in the off season.
Yeah, but he can't do his leg.
Whoever the sports manager, like, they can be hand biking like a mother.
Yeah, he could be doing rowing.
Yeah, just doing whatever to keep your...
That makes you feel like you're having a heart attack after 1 minute of doing it. Imagine he walks into the Super Bowl and he looks like a cartoon, like he's all upper body. His legs look like pencils.
He's like Rocky 3. He's ready.
And they're like, "Good God!" He takes one leg and his leg buckles. He like has
like a Taz.
Can't support himself like David Boston. Remember when he juiced up? And then
allegedly, we're not trying to get sued here on the show. Allegedly.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll come after it. That'd probably be so much publicity for us. Outrageous. It'd be like if I'm saying that Ryan Day dyes his beard.
We have Tony Dungy listening to our show.
Yeah, well, it's about time I get someone hating me on the show, other than like random fans calling us fat or whatever. Remember that guy? I made fun of Tom Izzo, and some guy's like, "You're just fat." It's like, all right, what are you talking about? I can't critique Tom Izzo. Like, his team hasn't been good since 2000, bro. Yeah, they won some Final Fours, but come on, give me a break. Awesome comeback. But not like Tony Dungy just like following the show for 3 years. Only whenever we talked about Gruden, though. He probably had like a favorite set up and a Google alert or something. He's like, John Gruden again? And then Gruden got fired, so he kind of ended that. That was the day Tony Dungy celebrated. You know, like the Dolphins do when the team loses. When Gruden got fired, Tony Dungy's like, "Fired up, boys. Come on over." At my own Ring of Honor. That's what I feel like with him. And then some of the guys, like those old coaches that are like around, I hear them talk about like other teams, like records and stuff, and you can tell that it pains them. Who was it the other week? Or maybe it was this past weekend or Sunday, whatever. I think it was Tony Romo, and he was like trying to fight through a segment on playoff success, and I'm like, yeah, because you don't know it. Why? Who gave you this line, buddy? Like, I feel bad for you. You could tell that he was like choking it down. It's like, oh, come on. It's like Herb Street every year during rivalry week when he's talking about the Ohio State game. You can't like talk about how he won against Michigan. He had 4 tries, man. Like that has to eat at you. But Nick Saban on that show, he's been going outrageous. He's trying to like become Lee Corso, and it's so weird. Like he made a comment like 2 weeks ago or whatever about like ant shit or something. And then everyone was laughing, and I thought, what is this? Did he write that himself? He's also in those like weird Airbnb commercials. He's turning into a villain. And every time...
You mean he wasn't already?
Bro, everyone talks about how he's like the greatest coach. But
I thought that they have it set right now with Belichick at UNC that they could have like the most jacked up coaching thing ever happen. Let's have Saban come back and be his defensive coordinator, and then bring in Paul Johnson, run the triple option there, and that would just like completely just blow everyone's mind.
I'm just thinking that Belichick could blow up any Nick Saban greatest coach of all time. If Belichick wins a national championship at UNC, he's the greatest coach of all time again. Like in the NFL, he had all those Super Bowls. Everyone blamed it on Tom Brady. If he wins at UNC, a national championship, that surpasses anything that Nick Saban has done. Nick Saban has a losing record in the NFL. So all the Nick Saban fanboys, like, they would have no argument. It's kind of like Harbaugh. Everyone was saying, like, Harbaugh, oh man, he had to cheat to win. It's like, no, he's winning the NFL though, guys. Like, Urban couldn't do that. Saban couldn't do that. So maybe, he wasn't cheating. Maybe he's just a good coach, like Pete Carroll. Because they got Pete Carroll for the same thing. He had to have been cheated at USC, right? Pete Carroll, then he wins the Super Bowl, and everyone kind of just never talks about that anymore, other than like random fans. And then they don't even bring up Pete Carroll anymore. They just blame Reggie Bush and his Heisman Trophy. Have you noticed that? Because like you probably didn't see this, but even other sports like Gottlieb, whatever that guy, he was like a commentator on one of the networks. He's a basketball guy. He was going after Schefter for saying that like some small school had raised $50 million for NIL to try to get in the Pac-12. And so then he went after the basketball coach. He's like, bro, you're in last place in the division. Maybe spend less time on social media. And I thought, what a kill shot. Some random coach that you used to work with is like talking trash on your reporting. And you're just like, dude, you suck as a coach. Ended his probably career right there. I don't know. I think he's at Green Bay or something, like some small school. They have like no wins. They're like last in the conference. It was like embarrassing that he even just took a screenshot of the standings and sent it to him. Like he had to have really been annoyed. But who knows? That's what I feel like. Nick Saban talking about Belichick if he wins a national championship. What are you going to say? Because he had the manifesto. Everyone knows if you get a manifesto, dude, you're close to a national championship. It happened already once. You get a manifesto, in 2 to 3 years, you have a national championship. And that's the blueprint. Belichick has that. Check, Matt. All he needs is just to get the recruits. With the portal, Indiana can go from never having 10 wins or whatever. I don't even know what the record was. Like they never had a record this good, like ever. They turned it around in 1 year by hiring a new coach and focusing on like transfer portal stuff. So much so that Dabo took a transfer this year. And I saw people down here celebrating it. And it was just ridiculous. I couldn't take it. It makes me want to just unfollow Clemson friends, but I don't care that much, I'm not going to censor people, Like, I can't follow these Clemson guys. Let them celebrate their transfer portal wins. They're getting close to becoming the ACC Ohio State. Off-season champs coming down, celebrating it. We'll get you next year. Although they won the ACC. Now they know, like, they're, like, getting ready to lose their playoff game. Whenever you're talking about transfer portal wins, the week before your playoff game, you're not in for a good time. Right? Like Michigan's talking about landing the number 1 quarterback. You're not that pumped about it if your team's in the playoff. It's more of like, awesome, we can keep this run going. Not like it's the entire existence right now. So I've seen it both sides. I'm not trying to just dog them. Michigan's gone through the same thing. But we're not in the playoffs, so what's the difference? But yeah, back to the NFL. Having like Belichick leave. And then having all these young coaches now. Because really it's been Andy Reid. You have all the young coaches that were on that Washington staff a while ago. Packers, LaFleur. Was O'Connell with Minnesota? Was he one of them? Was Miami's guy on there? And then was it Staley? He's fired. Harbaugh replaced him, didn't he?
Yep.
Maybe they weren't all in the same one, but there was like that group of like young guys that were all kind of together. And now it's like, all right, you have to win. One of you guys has to win a Super Bowl. Like Shanahan has been close. He's blown it every time. It's like he wants to be the new Andy Reid, but he has Brock Purdy and not Mahomes. Where he's like, we can get there, and I'm going to choke down my leg. Shit down my leg, or whatever. Choke the game away. But that's where I kind of feel with the Steelers right now. Playing good, you're going to beat a good team. Maybe you win a playoff game or two. But if Russell Wilson really wants to kind of elevate himself, because to me, I hear a lot of stuff about like Aaron Rodgers, awesome. If Russell Wilson can win a Super Bowl with another team, to me, he's better than Rodgers ever. I think that would elevate him to a status of one of the all-time great QBs. Because people barely win Super Bowls as it is. Right? Everyone remembers Montana just for doing good with the Chiefs. Right? He didn't win Super Bowl there. But he was serviceable there, so they were like, that's what Russell Wilson has to do. At least have a run with the Steelers. He choked his chance in Denver. And Denver's been looking pretty good, though. So what do you think? Do you think that would kind of put him up there if he can get this done?
I think it could. I mean, he competed for multiple Super Bowls already. So, I mean, I don't feel like he's one where you feel like his legacy is in jeopardy. I do think, as frustrating as it is right now to have Pickens missing the last 2 games, I feel like that is a missing element. Like, people are trying to vilify all the reasons why Pittsburgh should get rid of Pickens. And I feel like his scenario is so much different from like the Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown. Like, they went through a spell during that time where it was like they were just cycling receivers through, and I don't think that it even really mattered. Where Pickens is head and shoulders right now one of the best receivers. Now, it can be argued, how are they utilizing him? You know, and are they efficiently getting him the touches? Because I feel like you look at how Devontae Adams was being used with the Raiders. Was he helping them? Absolutely. Like, forcing teams to have to double team you, I think opens up options for other people. Now, was Devontae Adams in a situation where he wanted to be the decoy player? Absolutely not, because he went from putting up limited stats in Vegas to going to the Jets, and now he has like multiple games where he's multiple touchdowns and high yardage that they're forcing the ball to him.
That's where I agree with you. He's been a hurt element. I know he ruined your fantasy team season, so that's a bummer for you. But I don't know if the Steelers can get help without him. Like, might as well rest him up for the playoffs. Doesn't matter right now if he's back playing the Eagles, right?
Well, and that was kind of the point that I was getting at with it, is fantasy, it sucks. But from a like true NFL, like from the Rooney standpoint, it's not hurting anything right now because they're a playoff team. They're going to be in. So I don't think that's something that should be weighing on you. It's what gets you to be the toughest opponent going down the stretch. And I think it's maintaining your health, because the biggest thing that I've noticed among the playoff teams is it's if you can maintain your main depth with a high level of health, you stand a chance of really making a push deep into the playoffs. The teams that get banged up and are limping into the playoffs, they don't stand a chance, because that talent drop off, even at the professional level, is so drastic that teams can't overcome that.
Yeah, some guys like T.O. coming back for the Eagles really put them over the edge, and he was unstoppable, even being injured. And they still couldn't even get it done, though.
And it was like you look at that scenario, and he still had like the banged up leg or whatever. Going into that Super Bowl, if he's 100% healthy as opposed to whatever percentage he was at, I think that makes them a completely different team.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because he put up the stat line because they didn't have to like double cover him because he wasn't healthy. They knew it. He still got his receptions or whatever. But if you have a healthy him, then they have to focus on him. They can't just be like, well, we can't. We'll just let him kind of beat us because he's injured. But Pickens to me isn't at that level yet. So I don't know. He's gonna be their best weapon no matter what. I'm not gonna deny that. And the running game still gives me pause. I don't know what they're doing there. But cycling in Fields is like the running QB. Sometimes they do that, and it's insane to me. Because that's like something a college team would do, right? Penn State had been doing that. Where they're like, well, we can't get the running game going for some reason. Let's bring in this quarterback and let him try to like not kill himself. Like they know you're not going to pass it because you don't trust him. But whatever, see what happens. But yeah, the other thing I brought up earlier was like the Lions defense now with so many injuries. What a change for the NFL season, because we were looking at the Lions being head and shoulders like the best NFC team. Now with no defense, they're in like 40-point shootouts with the Bills. What in the world is going on here? Right? And then I watch Mahomes. He's like injured or whatever. But I'm thinking the Chiefs are going to win another Super Bowl here. Because I don't think that until I see playoff Bills show up where they can beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but they're going to choke it away. Like, I need someone from the AFC to stop the Chiefs. And I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a team with that killer instinct yet. The Eagles kind of look like they can have it, but of course they're on the NFC side. So if the Lions are banged up and they don't have it, they were the team that had the most talent to me. I thought the Lions were. Now the Eagles are going to be there. They've come up short in the Super Bowl before. I don't think they have any more talent this year than what they had last time. So Mahomes gets healthy. I think we're looking at another unfortunate run because people are saying, oh, we're not going to watch if it's Mahomes again. But the NFL ratings are still going up. It's insane. It's insane. Compared to like the NBA, because they keep giving the NBA these big contracts and their ratings keep going down. And I brought it up like a week or two ago. We were talking about Major League Baseball stuff. At some point, there has to be a tipping point. You can't just keep spending, and then the owners are putting in all this money. But it really doesn't matter because they sell the team for then billions of dollars above like what other people are paying because it's kind of like an elite club to be an owner, right? You can pay and be a jerk like the Panthers owner.
Or Bob Nutting.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob Nutting. He's just there.
They have billboards out there like abandoned ship.
I know. I told you they had protests going. It started with like 12 people, and I'm like, they're like, we're going to keep doing it and seeing if it gets bigger. And I thought, good for you. Even if it's only like 20 people outside the office, like I guarantee he goes in And people were like, hey, they're outside protesting again. Like he knows about it. And it has to kind of eat him up at some point. Right? He doesn't seem like the guy that can just take it. Some guys can just like take the haters and like it fuels them. Like I don't feel like Nutting is that guy. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, he doesn't care. He just might not care at all. He might not be the other guy too, which will get upset and sell the team. He might just be like, okay. Just another day. Hey, when's our next signing? Any ideas for some new grilled cheese Sammies? Any players we can sign that we can make puns of for food at the concession stand? All right, cool. Hey, write that article again about how our team's a few years away, right? People are eating it up. I still have Pirate fans tell me that. Hey, I'm going to a game. I'm like, why? They're like, oh, this is a young team. They're a few years away. I'm like, are you serious? What, are you reading like a letter Bob Nutting sent you? Why are you reading his talking points to me? A few years away. Come see me in a few years. I've been hearing that since 2013, dude. It's a decade now. It'll be like 2025 or 2052. I mean, they'll be like, yo, a few years away. Nutting's still the owner. He's so old, he just lays in bed. Like, yeah, kind of like whenever he was younger, not doing anything. But I think that's all I have for NFL stuff. Anything you want to talk about? Or pro sports, I guess, in general?
Not so much pro.
All right, let's get into the biggest topic, the Heisman Trophy. So, in the past, I kind of just didn't want to talk about the Heisman Trophy at all because it kind of turned into a glorified quarterback award. And the funny part was, like, was it Colt Brennan back in like Hawaii, like mid 2000s? They were like, he can't win it. He's a system QB. Like he has Hawaii winning, they never win. But he's a system QB. He can't win it. Now you have all these system QBs like when Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley and like Ryan Day and all his air raid QBs are just racking up stats, and people are like, they got to be in the Heisman finalist list. Like they have to. Look at all the stats. It's like, yeah, but these are just system guys. They're not winning games. Like Ohio State isn't winning the big game. Oklahoma or Lincoln Riley isn't winning the big game. There's no reason you should just make their quarterback a Heisman finalist. And I think the most upsetting to me was like when Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, defensive ed, clearly Michigan had never made the playoffs, had been struggling for like 15, 20 years at that point, makes the playoff behind Hutchinson's great defensive line play and a strong defense for the first time. And they're like, we're going to give it to an Alabama QB, a guy throwing five-star receivers, Bryce Young, and then he busts in the NFL pretty much. It's like, oh, okay. Well, maybe he didn't deserve it. Maybe he wasn't the best QB. Just racking up stats and putting numbers up when your team's more talented than everybody else isn't a big deal to me. Same with like the Nick Saban argument that I was making earlier. Like when he was at Alabama, he recruited in the top 3 like every year. Most of the time he was number 1. He should probably have more undefeated seasons than what he does, if you're being honest. Like if you have the most talented team, yeah, I know you're going to hit some bumps on the road. Maybe like in an expanded playoff with all the losses he had racked up throughout the years, maybe he doesn't even win as many national championships as he did. Like the BCS and the 14 playoff really did him a favor because you're putting your team in a good position for a second chance that they took advantage of a couple of times. I mean, heck, if they would have beat Michigan last year, they would have won the national championship. Did they deserve to be in there over Florida State? Like that would have been a weird national championship. If Florida State had beat Georgia and then Bama had won the national championship with one loss, like how could you say they were the true national champs last year? But the Heisman's kind of the same way now where it's like, well, we were going to give it to the best quarterback on a good team. Because like when Lamar Jackson won it, their team wasn't winning anything spectacular.
They didn't, but I feel like with Lamar Jackson, he was elevating Louisville way above where they were playing at.
What about RG3? You think the same thing?
I think to a lesser extent, yes, because I mean, you saw how successful Baylor was when he was there, and then there was just a steady decline after that because they didn't have the level of quarterback play that they were getting out of RG3 to make that system work. You know, I look at elevating programs. I think Genty has Boise in the playoffs because of what he's doing. You know, when you're looking at his stats, I mean, anyone that has listened to this program knows we're high on Barry Sanders. He's putting up Barry Sanders type numbers. And if you can do that with teams knowing, you know, I'll buy you a cold drink if you can name one other player on Boise State. Because I don't know anyone that's on their team other than him.
I will say that when they gave it to Hunter, remember, he got injured. He missed a couple games. That cost Blake Corum the Heisman, was it 2 years ago? What was the year? He only missed the Ohio State game. He already had top stats, big time runs. He missed the Ohio State game. Donovan Edwards went off. Remember, he had like 200 something yards. And people were then like, oh, maybe it wasn't Blake Corum. Maybe it was just the line being that good if Donovan Edwards can do it, right? Not realizing that like Donovan Edwards is just a pretty good running back too. But then like Hunter can miss a couple games. His team can miss the playoffs. And I get it. He played two ways. I respect that. It's like he had that's why to me, when they bring up the qualifiers, because I brought that up like 2 weeks ago. Remember I said I watched an ESPN and they were talking about his Heisman numbers and they kept saying the best two-way player in the past like 15 years or whatever. Is it because of Chris Gamble? Like they never showed who was a better two-way player, right? Because like wasn't it Chris Gamble at Ohio State that had a chance to win the Heisman and didn't? I don't even know who they gave it to, but I'm wondering like is Hunter not even as good as Chris Gamble? Because that was like Ohio State's guy. He won them the national championship pretty much, right? Wasn't he on the team with Maurice Claret?
Yes.
So you can't have that. And then I understand like, yeah, okay, Charles Woodson. So maybe they're going back to him. He played some wide receiver, but he was primarily a cornerback, and he was an awesome cornerback, evidenced by his Pro Bowl NFL career. And he was also like their punt returner and kick returner. Like was Hunter doing things like that? Because I don't think he was. Like Woodson was the team, and they won the national championship. So having like that separates it, where it's like, all right, we're picking Charles Woodson, the best player from the best team. Peyton Manning fans can go out there and cry about it. And then heck, even if it wasn't Woodson, it should have been Randy Moss that year. Should have been Randy Moss number 2, not Peyton Manning. They just had that Heisman like 30 for 30 or whatever up again. I caught parts of it. Should have been Randy Moss. Why give it to Peyton Manning? Like he was nothing. He didn't. What did he win in college? Nothing. The SEC before was the SEC. He won nothing in college. He basically almost won nothing in the NFL later too.
Until he ran into a Bears team that had no offense with Rex Grossman.
That's what it was, man. Rex Grossman. That's why you look at it, and he's like almost the first system QB putting up stats against nobodies. Almost Heisman winner. But old Charles Woodson took it away. And then maybe, I don't even know who won it the year Chris Gamble played. But I'm thinking that's what Travis Hunter is. And that's why it's dishonest. Like if you're telling me, ESPN, you're telling me that Hunter is the favorite for the Heisman, but you're telling me the stats are like, oh, only 15 years. I know you have stats going back further than that. So tell me who. Is there another guy that I missed? Maybe there's a running back linebacker combo I don't know about. Right? Like, who is the other two-way player? I would assume it was Gamble. Maybe it was someone else. But awesome. Yeah, he's a great receiver. I saw him adjust to the ball. I don't think he was the best receiver in college. Like, I would have been fine with him winning the Heisman, but not winning the individual awards, right? He wasn't the best receiver. He wasn't the best cornerback.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know like what his production was, but like Will Johnson had like what 2 pick sixes, and he only played like 3 or 4 games this year for Michigan. Right? He won the one game. Was that USC? No, it was a different game. Like he single-handedly took a pick six to the house to win one of Michigan's games this year. Will Johnson. Travis Hunter did some great like catches and stuff, but he didn't really put the team on his back like against Kansas. Bro, you have to beat Kansas and you're in the playoffs. Where were you? Was that one of the weeks he was out? I don't think so. He was out early in the year.
And I look at some of this too, like it's going to the best individual player, but they also had a lot of like they had Deion Sun as the quarterback. There was in contention for a lot of these high accolades. I'm not taking anything away from either player, but if you put Travis Hunter on any other team, how much more is he elevating their team? You know, or is it because they have this cluster of players that they have been playing together that's just contributing into that? You know, I think there's some other variables that are in play with that.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, did he elevate them enough? Like, if he was on Michigan's team, would our offense have been better? I don't think so. Would our defense have been better? Our defense is pretty good. We shut Ohio State down. Like, everyone knows the defense is pretty good. Yeah, they didn't shut down Texas, but that's because the offense was doing nothing. And then, of course, when your defense gets tired, yeah, you're going to get slaughtered, right? Everyone knows that. But I don't think Travis Hunter would have changed our team. Just looking at like trying to find a combination stats of like what the heck he's doing this year compared to like other guys. So like he had 4 interceptions this year, 1 forced fumble on defense. That's pretty similar to Will Johnson's stats last year. 4 interceptions. He had a touchdown on defense. Travis Hunter hasn't had a touchdown on defense. So this year, Will Johnson had 2 touchdowns. He only had 2 interceptions, but he only played 14 tackles worth of games. It doesn't say games. I thought that was going to be the games. But yeah, that doesn't make sense. So, okay. Awesome. He had, 2 interceptions for touchdowns. Like, he scored more on defense than Travis Hunter. So you look at his, like, receiving stats. Yeah, 14 touchdowns. 1,000 yards receiving. Put those 2 together. Like I said, to me, that would be like a Heisman type year. But I want to know, like, I'm going to look up Chris Gamble's stats and see. I don't think Chris Gamble had that many touchdowns, though, on offense. What's this tell me? Oh, this is his. Why are they giving me his NFL career? I don't care about the NFL one. But that's the one thing to me that he does have a good set of touchdowns that are going to be hard to beat. Because even then, like Chris Gamble, 2003, he only had like 1 touchdown. He had 31 receptions. He had 500 yards. But his defense, he had a touchdown on defense, 4 interceptions. So his stats are pretty similar. I'm guessing that's who they were talking about in terms of that. So he did score a lot more, but I don't think Campbell was used that many times on offense. He was more used like a Charles Woodson, where he's coming in and doing whatever they ask of him on offense, a little bit kind of mixing it up to get the running lanes open, I would guess. I don't know. But Genty's stats were so good that I thought he would have won it.
Well, and I felt like with Genty's, it was relatively more consistent. So I felt like his production, it wasn't like they played a bigger game and then his stats shied away. Like it seemed like he was maintaining production week in, week out.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Charles Woodson too. So what did he have? He had 7 interceptions? Good God. What a beast. Then he had 3 receiving touchdowns in his Heisman year, and then 1 punt return touchdown against Ohio State, which was his Heisman moment, pretty much, to put the game away. So, yeah, I think 7 interceptions is kind of, I don't know what the record is for a college year, but if you're also returning punts for touchdowns and catching touchdowns, yeah, I think you'd be the Heisman guy. Oh, no, one of his receiving was a rushing one. So he also ran for 1 and had 2 receiving ones. That's pretty all around pretty good. Said he also had a passing attempt. 1 for 1, baby. 28 yards. I wonder what that would be. But who knows? I don't know. Like, I'm glad that other players are kind of getting from different positions, but I want to see it be more consistent. If it goes back and we get 4 quarterbacks to win it in a row, then what's the point? This year, I think he benefited because there's no top team. Oregon, yeah, if they'd have given it to Oregon's quarterback, to me, is that really impressive? This could just be an Oregon team that chokes. Right?
Could be.
System team. We talk about it. Well, it doesn't matter who coaches them. They kind of run a similar offense for some reason. It's kind of weird. Right? So we have a little bit of that going on. But I don't know. I will say that the bowl games this year, the schedule's kind of weird for me. Because, like, the playoffs are this weekend. So this opening round, dude, we have Indiana, Notre Dame first on Friday. Who do you think wins that game and why?
My initial gut says Notre Dame. Just because I feel like Indiana's having a Cinderella run right now, but I feel like Notre Dame has just, recruiting-wise, they're in a better spot. That I feel like they're there, but I'm going to actually go against my gut and say Indiana because I feel like I think that they're just going to be they're just going to continue the run. I'm just going with it.
Well, did you see that Ohio State guy was complaining and saying that the Heisman voter that voted for Rourke, Indiana's QB, deserved to have his vote taken away? Why? What? He had Indiana winning, dude. he had 27 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, right? Why in the world? He had a better year than like Will Howard at Ohio State, which to me, if they're saying like, oh no, should have had Will Howard, it's like, no. He had the same amount of touchdowns, half the interceptions. Why would you say that one's better than the other? Because they won head to head? Like sometimes your team's just not as talented. So when I see that, I'm kind of like, all right, because even like Dylan Gabriel, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. How is that so much better than Indiana? Oregon wins every year, right? Yeah, they won the Big Ten for the first time because they're new, but Indiana have had a 100-year history of not winning. So if one guy voted for him, great. Someone also voted for Tyler Warren. He had 1,000 yards receiving as tight end and 6 touchdowns. Why not? What did I say Travis Hunter's stats were? 1,000 yards. What was it? 14 touchdowns, though? But maybe he's not as important. Tyler Warren won some games. I could see someone just voting that. So, to me, I'd rather have non-hive mind voters voting for other guys and giving them points that deserve it. Right? Why not? Why not? Like, if you're going to have your team, now Penn State didn't win the Big Ten, so, like, I could see that. But Indiana, why not give their QB some love? He should have been a finalist. You have Indiana go 11-1. 11-1 at Indiana. I want them to win, just because I don't like Notre Dame. They're one of our many rivals, Matt. You probably don't know it. I was just telling someone, I was at the game where their AD or whatever ran across the field and gave Michigan the note that they had to cancel the games because they were joining the ACC or whatever, that weird scheduling thing. What a joke. What a joke. Get out of here. The next game, SMU at Penn State. Who do you got in that one and why?
I just can't. It doesn't matter what they do. I can't bring myself to root for Penn State or pick them in anything. So I got to go SMU.
I think Penn State will win this one. And I don't know how I feel about that. Michigan battles Penn State and Notre Dame for the most recruits. Like, nothing against like Ohio State, but most of like the same style of guys we get are the same styles like a Penn State or Notre Dame. That's why I'm baffled that Penn State can't beat Ohio State. Our teams are kind of similar and we recruit the same guys. But it's like, all right, well, you're not doing something on game day that Michigan has started to do. But SMU, I was ready to ride or die with them. But when they lost to Clemson, they came out flat. And to me, that's coaching and preparation. James Franklin's hit or miss, but he knows how to get his team fired up for games. Like every year against Ohio State, he has them fired up. He has them ready to go. It's at home. And what, a whiteout? Or no, it's a noon game. They're probably so mad that they didn't get a whiteout. Right? It'll be a fake whiteout. But I just think, like, man, he's going to have them fired up for this game. I think Penn State wins it. Personally, for the sake of the expanded playoff, I'd rather see SMU make a run. If SMU and Boise both make a run, then all the SEC slappies can just kind of shut up. Especially if Tennessee like gets boat raced by Ohio State or something. Because if the SEC teams aren't performing well, then you can't complain that Alabama didn't get in. So the next one, Clemson at Texas. Do you think Clemson has a chance?
Clemson who?
Texas.
No. I think Clemson runs away, or Texas runs away with it.
Texas right now, to me, is in a weird spot, right? They should be the favorite. But there are rumblings that Ewers is he's looking to go elsewhere, right? The portal timing is weird. You can't be looking to go elsewhere before the playoff game. Last year, when Michigan was making the run, everyone kept asking JJ, like, you going pro? You going to come back? And he's like, dude, I'm not even thinking about that at all. Texas, on the other hand, their starting quarterback is thinking that he might transfer. Penn State also lost their backup guy to transferring. He's not even going to play. That kind of helps SMU, but again, I don't think it's enough to overcome the home game for Penn State. But Texas, to me, if someone's going to shock the world, it's going to be Clemson over Texas. I'm picking Clemson. I think Dabo, I'm not sold on Sarkisian. I don't care how many times Nick Saban talks him up. You're not selling me, dude. I have to see it. Like Andy Reid. How many times did we call it Andy Reid over the years? How many times did I complain about Harbaugh getting tight in big games? Till finally, last year, he got over the hump. Even his brother, I talk about the Ravens. Some coaches, Ryan Day, you get in a big game, you do dumb things, and you're like, what are you doing? And until I see Clemson or Texas do that, I've seen Clemson coach the same way that they've done in the regular season, and they show up. So, orange on orange. I think this could be a time where if some of these smaller schools, well, Clemson's not really a smaller school, but if a couple of these SEC teams lose in the opening round, does it affect, like college basketball, does it affect the conference perception the following year? Because remember, it was always the bowl games. Like, oh, going into next year, you got to remember the Big Ten went 10 and whatever that one year. Everyone's pumping the Big Ten up, and then they shit the bed the next year. SEC, like, oh man, they're losing a couple games, like a bunch of tight games, and then people are saying, well, players are transferring. So I think the bowls don't matter anymore because people are transferring and everyone sees that. So that's not really coloring the perception of the conference. But if your conference doesn't win in the playoffs, I think the next year it's going to be hard to recover from that. That's why I think people were surprised. Like, I think that's kind of why the ACC probably got 2 teams in. Florida State wasn't given a chance. The Georgia game didn't matter. I mean, it mattered for me making fun of you. But in the grand scheme of things, no one cared.
No.
ACC got left out. This year, they get 2 teams in. It's not Florida State, so their fans are probably pissed. But now they can say, well, look, ACC, you have your chance. If both teams get bounced early, yeah, they're on the road. I think they would like to see one upset. I think Clemson has a better chance, if I'm being honest. If both teams lose, it's going to be a hard sell next year to get 2 ACC teams in. Unless it's a weird year like this and both teams are like in Indiana 11-1, right? Because all the SEC people are saying, well, it's tough. Indiana can just say, look, we play a 9-game schedule. We went 11-1. You guys are like 9-3 everywhere. And that goes to our last one, Tennessee, 10-2 against Ohio State, 10-2. I can't help it that Ohio State has a great rival that's so much better than them in every way that they have a tough time beating now, Matt. So I don't fault them for that, right? It's tough to have the reigning national champs on your schedule. And now they got a home game, barely. The last home seed against Tennessee. Who do you have in this one?
Oh, goodness. I'm leaning towards Tennessee. I just think that offense is so bizarre. And I'm not high on Ohio State's offense with how they played in the snooze fest game.
You have Ohio State here. They have to win. They have to. I have to pick them because if they lose this game, it's over. Right? You can't come in, hype up your team. Hey, we're national champ favorites. Look at all this NIL money we're spending. And I've talked about this with other teams, right? The NIL money, the guys aren't just giving money. They expect a national championship. They've been talking about it all year. They've been doing the Michigan blueprint. All the guys that were so close last year, they paid to have them come back. And then those guys are supposed to win the game. I think their big mistake was pushing out Kyle McCord. Everyone knows that second year, the quarterback's going to take a jump. Right? McCord was a Heisman finalist this year, I think. I don't know if he was invited to New York, but he was in the top 10, I think. So you have McCord gone. You bring in a guy that kind of doesn't really fit Ryan Day's offense. He seemed like he would be a better fit for more of a Penn State offense, if I'm being honest. So it doesn't matter what Tennessee does. You have to win. They have to win. I'm picking Ohio State. I'm not trying to jinx them or anything. Ohio State will win in a landslide. There's no chance they will lose this game, right? That's what I'm at.
Oh, look at you doing the reverse psychology.
It's going to happen. They're going to win, and then they're going to play, what, Georgia or someone? I'm just happy the way the bracket came out. Because when it was originally, like, looked at a week ago or whatever, if they had beat Michigan, there was a good chance they would have been the 5 seed. They would have had Clemson and then Arizona State or whatever. Now that's with Texas losing. Then maybe they were the 6. So they could have been in Penn State slot. They could have had SMU and then Boise State. I think both of them, Ohio State would have been in the Final Four. Easy. Now they're playing what? Tennessee and then Oregon. And then maybe Texas or Clemson or Arizona State. Oregon should beat them, but I'm not sold on Oregon either. We'll save that for the next round, next week's show or whatever. Because I guess, is there a week off? That's what I don't like about this new schedule. Whenever it came out and everything was like, oh, here's the new schedule. The championship game's on January 20th. You already have players sitting out, so they're taking well, I guess it's like because they want to do it on New Year's, which is a Tuesday and Wednesday, New Year's Eve and then New Year's. So they're doing one game at night, the Boise State game, and the Fiesta Bowl at 7:30, and then that's going to be a Tuesday, Wednesday. So then, yeah, because of that weird schedule, to me that should have been the semifinals. I think that last week's game, the 14th, should have been this opening round of games. I know they're saying like, oh, it's hard for us to get home games. I think scheduling home games are easier. And they kind of know where teams are seated anyway, right? They can do a pre-sale saying like, hey, Ohio State, most likely before the Big Ten championship game, you guys are going to get a home game. You're in the playoffs. Like there's no one that can magically get more wins than you, right? They know that they're going to be, they had to know Penn State and Ohio State were going to get a home game. Texas, they didn't know they were going to lose to Georgia. Or I guess Penn State, they didn't know if they were going to beat Oregon though either. But like you can kind of get a feeler out where, hey, the home games are going to be Ohio State. It's going to be, because they're not in the Big Ten championship, so we know it's going to be Notre Dame, so they can start selling. And then it's going to be probably the loser of Georgia, Texas, and Oregon and Penn State. So go ahead, send out your tickets to season ticket holders. Your game's going to be on the 14th. To me, that would have been better. The other teams that are lower seeds, they should be at a disadvantage. Like SMU, they lost the ACC championship game. They didn't get the bye. Disadvantage. You have to go to Penn State in a week. Oh, well, right? Hopefully you play better. And then this week should have been the quarterfinals. And then they could have had the Final Four on New Year's Eve again. That would have gave them like a week and a half to prep. And then the championship could have been the same week. But they were fighting, what, the NFL or something? It wasn't even the NFL, because there was nothing of NFL-wise on the 14th. They just didn't want to do it that fast. And it's dumb. They should have kept it fast and then kept the traditional schedule, because then it also messes up with the transfer portal we're talking about. Like Penn State's guy can't play now because he's in the portal and teams are interested in him, and he knows he's not going to be the guy next year for whatever reason. So, boom, he's gone. He doesn't even get to play. If it was last week, he would have got to play. And then the guys that are kind of like ready to go, like, yeah, if I'm not participating and my team's in the quarterfinals, then like maybe I'll transfer or whatever. But I think that could be the solution, honestly. But I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about on the playoffs?
I don't even know if it's so much the playoffs, but it's just the whole dynamic of the transfer portal being able to be open right now and forcing kids to make a decision between staying with the team and finding their next landing spot. And I feel like they have such a cluster because you have the early signing period, the early transfer window, which is now affecting the playoffs. And then there's another window that opens up at the end of spring. It almost feels like there was just no foresight into how that dynamic with the playoff was going to shift, because it was like the playoffs in the past have just been late so that you could say, if you're opting out or whatever, just have at it. But I think NCAA almost looked at it differently, like, well, I guess it's not that big a deal if you're opting out of your bowl game to get prepared for the draft compared to I'm opting out to try to transfer schools.
Well, and it's different too. Now you have to win 4 games. Like Penn State's QB, he looks at it. Last year, if they would have been in the playoffs, you're one of the Final Four. You're going to want to play in the Final Four, right? That's a once in a lifetime thing. Even like basketball, that's the gold standard. Now you have to win. If you're Penn State, you have to win 2 games to get to the Final Four. So he's thinking, we're not going to win 2 games. Or heck, even if we do, I'm not going to play anyway, and I want out. That's why I said if they would have just sped it up and said, hey, we know we have to keep the schedule because of the semester. Like the new semester starts after January 1st, no matter what. So you could have the transfer portal open maybe the week after Christmas. If they would have done it, because like they have the early signing period, awesome. Those guys can get on campus. Like I'm pretty sure Michigan has brought guys in, and I think that if they enroll early, they can do the bowl game practices, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I don't think they can play right away, right? But they can get there and get those valuable reps. Where transfers, yeah, maybe some guy will still want to do that, but I think if you locked them in until what would then be the Final Four, because then you'd have the same semifinal games, and you would make what the national championship would be like the 8th, 7th. What was it last year? It's always like the following Tuesday or whatever. So like at worst, it could be the 10th or the 11th. Maybe a class has started by then, but I think at that point, yeah, you have time. You're prepping for the national championship game. Some guys in that game are still going to transfer, right? I mean, heck, didn't a bunch of Washington's guys end up transferring to Alabama anyway? So, yeah, you might miss that spring class or whatever. But honestly, if you're in the national championship game and you win, wouldn't you want to be on your own campus celebrating it for a while, like a semester, before you transfer to a different school? Like some of the guys, I think they're like, we got to transfer now because I got to get in with that other team. Otherwise, I don't want to get into another team and then not play at all.
Well, and I think this segues perfectly into how Florida State right now is addressing their terrible season. And it still just completely baffles me how they went from 13-0 to 2-10 and just getting mollywopped by everyone and not even having any semblance of an offense. And I know we kind of touched on it last week where it was like when you put all your eggs in the portal basket, but with the state of college football right now, I almost feel like there's not an emphasis on player development because so you spend this massive NIL on a top recruiting class, there's nothing holding those players for X number of years. So you can sign the number one class and every top prospect. That's not to say that they're not just going to jump ship and go to the next NIL deal the following year. So, I mean, it's a continuous free agency style move where their players are having that opportunity to go for more money. I think you're going to see each team, and I look at Florida State right now, they're glaring holes offensive line. So now every major portal player is being speculated visiting Tallahassee right now and trying to flip it. And I think it makes things easier for teams to rebuild because you can just look and go, okay, we're evaluating our team. What do we need? They're shifting to a 3-3 defense. What do we need? Edge rushers and linebackers. Hit the portal, find those guys, throw a pile of money at them, and now you've just taken your weaknesses and made them your strengths. If the offensive line's an issue, here's piles of money. Throw it at the biggest, best offensive linemen that are there, and now you have a strength. And I think you have to find that happy medium between signing players from college, developing them, and hitting on the portal, because I think if you live in the portal, you're going to have these fluctuating seasons where it'll be this year we're in the playoffs, next year we're completely whiffed, and you go back and forth.
Well, that's why I kind of like, and some of this is speculative, but I kind of like how Michigan's had guys like Tom Brady come back and meet with players that are kind of signed there and say, like, look, this is what you need to do. Because there's no NCAA rule. Like, Michigan can't give a guy a contract and say, well, if you sign here, you're locked in for 4 years, like they used to be able to do. But the NIL, they can. So a lot of schools, and we hear players complain about it, like, hey, I wasn't paid by NIL. I think a lot of that is just because the player doesn't understand the contract. They think, oh, I sign, I'm getting $3 million. But they read the contract, and it's like, I know they can't really put in there like, oh, you have to make X, Y, Z tackles. But it's probably like, hey, you have to play. It's just like a sponsorship. You can't get in trouble off the field. And if that's not really spelled out, players get dropped from contracts all the time. Like, right, making a crazy social media post. Look at Britney Spears. Do some crazy stuff on social media. Sponsors are dropping you left and right. Your NIL could be the same exact thing. And then guess what? Then you're cancer considered. Like, no one wants to touch you. So you have that aspect of it. And I really think that a lot of schools, they don't have anyone helping. That's why I'm hoping, like, having a Tom Brady and like some of the NFL guys and having more of like a contract, more of like a players association type thing, which I know they don't have. Northwestern tried to get one or whatever, like some type of union where they can say, like, look, you come here, these are the sponsors that are really going to pay you, right? Because, like, Michigan lands Underwood, number one recruit. We'll know if the NIL is real. I mean, the guy from Oracle's doing it, so I'd assume it's real. And he probably had, like, real lawyers and stuff. Some of these other, like, NIL boosters, you hear about them, like, going to court because they're doing shady things. You really think they're really paying the players whatever they offered? And the players don't understand it because the parents don't understand it. So, like, you get parents that don't have any idea. Maybe they don't have a lawyer. Maybe they can't afford a lawyer, right? It's not like they can go downtown to the courthouse and be like, hey, I need a lawyer. And they're like, for what? Like, my son, he's a football player. They're not just going to give you one. Maybe if you're lucky, like your high school coach has some contacts, or you're kind of relying on the school helping you out. And that's why I almost like, I would like to see more of just a group of NFL players, former guys that didn't really make the league. We see him on the broadcast booth all the time, right? All those guys that I talk about on NBC, I don't know who they are. I'm pretty sure they played, like, at least in the NFL a little bit. But there are some guys like what was it, Marcus Lattimore from USC that tried to do it. The NCAA kind of went after him. Like, I would like to see a group of guys like that were big time, heavy college stars, kind of get together, put together like an initiative of just some type of representation so that players know, like, hey, and it would have to be, maybe the Big Ten will do it. Maybe it could be conference wide, which would kind of really help put the Big Ten ahead of other conferences. Like, it would really mess things up. But I think that, I think once you're there, if you can get head and shoulders above the other conferences in terms of support for the players, it would go a long way. You might see players transfer from team to team, but other than that, I don't know how much further you could go from there. Honestly, if I'm looking at it that way, I just don't know how they could do it. Like, it's going to be probably an NCAA thing, and I don't think the NCAA should be in charge, to be honest. They make kids sign a lot of paperwork.
I don't know. That last part, you kind of chopped up on me.
Yeah, I know. I saw the Skype thing was being weird. The recording's good, though, it looks like. Anything else you want to talk about NIL or anything else today?
I really don't have a whole lot else. I mean, I think it's crazy right now to see how the rest of Florida State staff is playing out. And with some of the guys that they're looking at in the portal, I kind of laugh a little bit because with bringing Herb Hand and Malzahn in, it's like anyone from UCF's offense is like, oh, yeah, we definitely need to bring them. It's like, do we, though? Like, they played well at UCF, but, like, does that mean it's going to elevate where we're at? And, like, I get that the defensive coordinator for a former DC from Nebraska, like, had a really highly ranked defense. But just because he was doing that in Nebraska, where they're going to have more money to throw at recruits, like, doesn't necessarily automatically translate to we're going to have the number one ranked defense.
Well, I was looking through my notes, and I had a question about Florida State. I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw some things where Norvell might have had the Harbaugh forced contract where he has to pay part of his contract to a NIL group. Is that true? Did you see that?
No.
So they were saying, and I don't know how true this is, but they're saying Norvell had to restructure his contract.
Oh yeah, the $4.5 million.
Yeah. Which, isn't that insane?
No, because I think that's the direction everything's going.
The coaches pay the players?
Yes. I think it's gonna get to that. Like, he's putting it, like, he's not directly paying them, but it's going towards a collective of where the money's getting redistributed to the players. And I think that's the direction you're going to see. And guess what? You only won a handful of games, so guess what? You can pony it up too.
Well, I think that's the thing that's going to scare schools, though, because if players are then connected to the coach, it doesn't matter if that's a Florida State initiative. Let's say Norvell gets an offer from, like, Texas and jumps. Oh, guess what? All those guys that he had been paying directly are going to go with them, like Dion had Hunter and his sons follow him, right?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what happened. None of them stuck around. Anyone that was worth elect didn't stay at Jackson State. They all went to Colorado for that bigger bag.
Well, DeBoer didn't take too many people with Alabama, but that's such a big jump up, and they already had so much more talent that maybe it didn't matter. But I think going from a lower division to a higher division is a different story. I just wonder if other coaches start doing the same thing where the players are so connected because they're getting paid by XYZ NIL initiative. All Coach Norvell has to say is, yo, I'm taking a new job. Maybe I'm going to the Big Ten. Going to be Indiana's coach. And the same NIL deal I have set up in my contract too. Come on up. And I think the players would just go with them if they like them. The guys that are winners anyway, right?
Yeah.
He'll be like, not you.
Well, that's why I was like, they restructured. There were people that were in a big panic that he was potentially being courted by Alabama. It was like, it was a shitty year, but
so
like
funny.
he's still the guy that I feel like is in the best position to have them contend long term. Like, he's been ahead of the curve on a lot of issues. I think he has to be there.
Well, my final bell is kind of related. What about Rich Rod? Is he the guy? He came back to West Virginia.
I think he is.
Because it's the same thing. They're betting on him for NIL because West Virginia, since NIL has come up, let's be honest, West Virginia used to take guys a lot of recruits based on like academic issues, really, right? I think that's kind of where a lot of guys that has talked about in the past, like you get West Virginia is a kind of a second chance. When NIL came out, schools are paying kids to take a second chance with them. And so now with Rich Rod there, is he able to get that going? I think Pat McAfee and a couple other big West Virginia donors are trying to get something going. I'm curious to see if it's going to pay off. I hope it does. I like Rich Rod at West Virginia. I wish West Virginia was more competitive. I've also heard things of like Narduzzi at Pitt might not be there for long because of NIL issues. I don't know if you've heard that.
I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Because they were talking about possibly, I heard this from a good friend where they were saying that some of the Pitt boosters have already been in discussions of when they look for their next football coach, which is going to be soonish. I don't know how soon. They want an NIL-focused coach, especially now that the Rich Rod move has happened. They want to bring back the Wannstedt type era, where you're able to get a Larry Fitzgerald or someone like that, right? And keep them, not like Addison going to USC. And so maybe we'll see a resurgence of Northern football after the Southern schools have had a hold on it for 15 years now? Could Michigan be the first domino, win a national championship? Let's say Oregon or someone wins it this year, or hell, worse, Notre Dame or someone. The NIL could be the complete shift away from guys just staying home and staying in the South, right? A lot of recruits from Florida, Texas, wherever. So that's my final thing. I wonder if Rich Rod can get it done. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we're hitting the silly season, so I'm curious to see how the playoffs play out and to see how different teams are going to look with the portal.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I like the expanded playoff. I wish they would have went to 16. I still think like Oregon playing some other school would have been good for them to stay fresh. But we'll see if it makes an impact this year. But at least we have some real meaningful college football at the same time that the NFL is starting to get playoffs locked up. So if there's anything you want us to hit on, let us know, and we will see you next week.